how we approach transformation. So in order for me to talk about aligning your DevOps, your Agile transformation, I have to talk a little bit about Agile transformation. And there's different approaches you can take to a transformation. And we definitely have an opinion about how you should do that. So you can take a systems approach, meaning the systems within your organization, like how do we build teams? How do we get work to teams? How do we, prioritize features? How do we, and then how do we actually go through the mechanics of organizing and transforming? What's our governance? What's our structure? What's our metrics? Things like that from a organization and systems perspective. You can have a culture first approach or a practices approach. So, the systems, right, or the culture, let's start with, right? So I'm changing hearts and minds. I want people to care about the builds. I want people to think it's their responsibility. I want people to own that it's, every change should, every, set of changes should be deployable often, weekly or every other week or what have you, right? That delivery systems, if we get the right culture, we get people to care about the right things, then the practices and the systems will emerge within our organization, right? That's kind of a culture first transformation. Let's start with the hearts and minds. The second type of transformation is we can start with the practices, right? We can teach, here's how you do continuous integration, here's how you do version control, here's how you do continuous deployment. We'll teach the teams those skills. And then as they build those things up, that's going to affect the culture and the systems, right? If we teach these practices, then things will get better, in the organization. And then, I talked about this a little bit, but from a systems approach, right, aligning the organization first to deliver value, and then iteratively and incrementally rolling out Agile as part of that. So how do we create the right conditions? What has to be true such that a team can successfully implement DevOps, or what has to be true so a team can successfully provide predictable or high velocity or high value. So I'm going to take this very much from a systems first time kind of perspective and walk through how we roll out DevOps within that perspective. So let's look at that. What is the system that I'm going to use? And there's other systems that can be used to roll out Agile, but what I would say is make sure that you're creating the conditions for the team to be successful before you're starting to put practices into them, because otherwise the teams may fail and your investment's going to be wasted. So all right, so what is the system of transformation? How do we look at an Agile transformation? So first of all, we look, different teams need to get to different points in this grid, right? So, if you look at the left, we have predictability, and at the right, we have adaptability, right? Is it more important to be predictable and we just need slow and steady wins the race, or do we have to be really adaptable in our software? In different systems, maybe we have a commodity backend package that can be more in that we just need to be predictable. And then we have a e-commerce site that needs to change with the times, that needs to be very adaptable. And then what's happening to my market, right? Is it fairly stable, or is it being disrupted, right? So if it's being highly disrupted, I need to be more emergent. If it's not, I can be more convergent. So we take teams from where they are and we say we need to go step by step through a transformation. So a team will start most often when we meet them that they're trying to be predictable, and they're in a market that's being disrupted, and they say, okay, we need to do an Agile transformation. So for us, the first goal then, and we talk about treks to base camp. So the analogy is we're climbing a mountain, And you don't just go from the bottom to the top, that you stop at various base camps and you build your capability to get step by step through that transformation. And what we're going to do after this slide is then relate each of these DevOps practices and how do we align them to this transformation approach. So first we want to stabilize the system. So we want to go, and our goal is to just be predictable and get a predictable team that can be trusted to provide results, and that's something that we can then start to improve. And then we want to reduce the batch size and start producing smaller releases and becoming more incremental in what we're building. And then we need to start breaking dependencies. In the first two, we're just trying to be predictable. We're trying to do smaller batch sizes. We may have to put a bunch of scaffolding in place so that multiple teams can coordinate their work, and that systems that are all tightly coupled and dependent on each other can work with each other. And so that build systems in the DevOps context, just by stabilizing the system or reducing the batch size, we still may have very complicated builds that cross team boundaries or cross system boundaries. And then we want to increase autonomy of those teams. And then ultimately, we want to be able to have some of our teams get to the level where they want to invest and learn. So this is the typical skunkworks type project, or the real isolated, we're going to hit the market many times, think of lean startup type teams.